CBS News political director and Face the Nation moderator John Dickerson is in Washington. John, good morning.
Good morning, Charlie.
When everything else has failed, would this ultimatum work?
Well, we're going to find out. It's kind of the last tool in the toolkit, which is you've got to always be able to negotiation to walk away. Donald Trump has done a lot of negotiations in talking to people over the course of covering him who've done negotiations and watched him. This is a part of what you do. You force it. And as Major said, it's very high stakes.
If they fail and if the ultimatum doesn't work, doesn't everybody lose here on the Republican side?
Well, it's not going to be pretty. And the thing to watch if it doesn't happen, if there is failure, is to watch the immediate finger pointing, because President Trump and House Speaker Paul Ryan have to stay in sync to get all the other complicated things they want to get done. And there is a little tiny distance in a New York Times story this morning between the president and Paul Ryan. The president reportedly saying he wishes he'd started with tax reform. Maybe he wasn't so sure this was the right thing to do at the start. If there's distance, that creates even more opportunities for opposition within Republican ranks. So if it doesn't pass, you're right, there will be a lot of finger pointing. And the question is how they regain their cohesion, because they won't be able to go forward without it.
To that end, John, the New York Times report that says that President Trump regrets pursuing health care repeal first. What does that tell you about his appetite going forward? Because if this passes, it is not a done deal in the Senate and has to be reconciled again in the House. That's right.
This is there's a long process going to come, and the fixes that were made to get votes in the House will lose votes among some senators who are under different kinds of pressures. I mean, what Donald Trump is learning as a president is that what all presidents learn, which is it's easier to win an election where you say the choice is between A and B than it is to negotiate a complicated piece of legislation where the choices are not between A and B, and where people have sticky concerns that are not so easy to fix. And so if there is a victory in the House, there is still much debate and much argument to go in as it goes over to the Senate.
John, how much power does the House Freedom Caucus have, and are they really ready to buck their president in his first major policy vote?
Well, they look like they're ready, although things are quite fluid. They have a lot of power, and they've gotten a lot of meetings, and they've gotten a lot of attention, and the bill has been moved in their direction, even though everybody knows that it's got this next stage to face in the Senate, and that the more conservative it's made in the House, the more problems that potentially creates in the Senate. So any group that can stick together that is more than 21 has a lot of power, because 21 is the number of votes, Republican votes, that are needed to get this passed in the House. So the Freedom Conference is, got that power because they're sticking together.
So what are the lessons to learn from all this, John?
Well, the lessons are that it's more complicated. These negotiations are a lot more complicated than perhaps the president thought. I'm not sure what the lesson is, really. We got to see how the final vote goes. If he pulls this out at the end by saying, I'm going to walk, then the lesson is be a hard negotiator at the end. So I'm not sure, Charlie, what we're going to do.
It may be, as somebody once said, some wit once said, that watching legislation is like watching sausage being made.
Yes, although that should be a lesson they already knew at the beginning. This is a piece of, it is ugly, and part of what the argument the president and others are making to Republicans is this is what governing looks like, and stop wanting the perfect and get behind what's possible. Of course, there are a lot of Republicans who came to Washington saying that's why we came, is to not go for just the possible, but to go for what we promised voters, and that's one of the clashes you've got here.
John Dickerson in Washington. Thanks, John.
Thanks, Charlie.